So yesterday we covered some basic things like how we can do basic things, but today we are going to start real programming part and everything of script and all the things. Yeah. So a SAS program, and nothing but a SAS script or SAS program, whatever thing you can call. A SAS program consists of majorly two parts. Okay, it's used a data step and proc step. So whatever you are going to do, that it will do in a data step and proc step only. It means all the data related things like reading the data, extracting the data, and modifying the data, combining, and just changing creating a new variable. All the creating the data part will be used data step, and the proc step majorly used once the data is ready. If you want to do an analysis, you will do the analysis with the proc steps. So here proc is nothing but a procedure. So nothing but procedure, nothing but what kind of analysis that you are going to do, that particular analysis procedure. Like you want to see the regression model, you want to build it, or you want to do the analysis of the variance, or you want to do the mean, you want to calculate the mean of the particular data. So those kind of analysis, if you wanted, you can do that with the procedure. To do the analysis, the data must be created before that. That part will do in the data part. In the data part, what will do is you will, once you get you can able to read the data from the database and get the data into the SAS system, and you can create a new variable or you can modify the existing variable. You want to do any calculations like data cleansing. You want to clean the unwanted data, you want to remove the data, and you want to clean the data. You want data like data merging, like nothing but you want to combine more than two data sets into one data sets by using some different joins. Okay, yeah, all these things that we'll do in the data part. But yes, so now let's go to that what exactly the SAS program consists of. So a SAS program is a sequence of statements or steps that user to submit for execution. So you are going to write some statements, and that particular statements majorly used to submit the program. So these are like we cannot do the like from part of the program in somewhere and part of it in other side. Like just you have to write the sequence of steps one by one that need to be followed with the SAS program technique like SAS rules and that. So as data step, now a data set, because you see the program is nothing but a sequence of SAS steps, and and a data set is a structured form of the data. It consists of rows and columns. Okay, so a data step are used to create the SAS data sets. So data set is nothing but a simple, it's a form of Excel sheet. In Excel sheet, how the data will look like it, rows and columns, right? Similarly in the SAS also rows and columns in the form of same cells and everything like that. Okay, and proc step are used to process the SAS data set, like generating the output and graphs, edit the data and sort the data, those kind of things. Okay, see here. Raw data and data SAS data set. Raw data nothing but if the data is there and you are sitting in your laptop or your PC or somewhere, because you're not connecting to any database. That is thing. If you already have the SAS data set, you can able to take directly. So by you in the end, the data will go to the data step. Once the data step is there, then it create the final data set. From the final data set, it uses the proc step. Proc step will use those final data sets and create the output. So this is how the data flow will be like. Complete flow. So now what exactly the SAS sequence of steps or SAS statements? Okay, so SAS statements would start with the data or proc. Okay, all SAS statements ends with semicolon. So whenever you're writing any statements, that must be end with the semicolon. So if you don't see, the SAS system does not find any semicolon, it means it still it considers in the single statement only. Until you just typed it and semicolon, that particular statement has completed. And so SAS statement can be written in a free format, like you can write an uppercase or lowercase, equal mixed case. Free format, not like a case sensitive. Okay, so if one or more blank characters or special characters can be treated as a separate word. Suppose if you're writing any blank in the within the word or anything, it will be considered separate words. So uppercase and lowercase are equivalent except inside the quote mark. Suppose whenever you're writing the program, you can write in uppercase or lowercase, so it doesn't bother. But if you want to write anything within the quotes, that will be as stagely. So it will not be. It will be considered as whatever you're writing. If you're writing uppercase and uppercase only, like okay, and they can begin and end with any column. So you can start anywhere and you can end anywhere. Like it's not like in one particular and you have to type everything. You can write n number of lines, one particular statement. Similar way, in one statement you can write n number of lines. Like in one line you can write n number of statements. But whenever you say semicolon, it means that will be ended. So a single state can span multiple lines and several statements can be a same line. Okay, so and a word cannot be split between the lines. Okay, if you split the word two lines, it will be considered as two separate words. Okay. Yeah, but you can begin in one line and continue with other line like this statement. So these are some basic statements how you are going to write whenever you're writing a program. Whenever you're typing these things, you have to remember that. Yeah, let's go to the how we can creating those data sets. How we can read those data sets one by one. So how the data can be read into the SAS system? What are the different sources that you can see that? So the first one is a data entry. So to creating the data sets, you need the data. So how you can get the what are the different methods that you will get the data? So by first thing is data entry. It means you can type that your own data within your program and create the data set. And you can take the data from the raw data file. Means we can take the data from outside the SAS system. If any particular text file, CSV file, any kind of file is there, you can take that particular file and read it and create the data set. And other software files like let's take Oracle database. So what we'll do, you can directly connect to the database and access those particular database tables, and you can take the data and create it in SAS dataset by extracting. In those cases, you don't need to just select the table name and what are the columns you want, and you can take it. So like it supports all kind of databases, whatever the databases that you have in your right now, all the databases it will support it. Means whatever the format data that you have, it will read those data. But it should be in a format and a structured format. So unstructured formats, it's we cannot read it. Either the file is in a file or in a table structure. That kind of thing is there. So whatever the process is there, it will take the conversion process and happen in the SAS. If you are using the data entry, it is a method. If I said it is some editor window, it will do the process in the back end. You cannot see those things. It will do in the back end. So in the data step, and you can use a SAS access software. So what is exactly the SAS access software is nothing but suppose the data is there in the database, some outside the SAS, some external database is there. To access that particular database, to retrieve the data from the particular database, you need to have separate modules. So if suppose if you have the base SAS, it's not sufficient to access the data from there. You need to have two different SAS modules separately. Those we call as a SAS access and Sas Connect. So if you have access, you can able to do that, but without connecting, you cannot access the data. Suppose if you have connected, then you can connect it, but if you don't have the access, you cannot see the data. You can only connect it. It means, but you need to, if to fetch the data from the database and create into the SAS dataset, you need to have two softwares, two additional softwares, that is two additional modules is required. Those we call as SAS Access and SAS Connect. It means majorly whenever you are connected to any database, even if you are going to connect to Excel also, you need to have these two softwares. Excel is not a file, it's a database kind of file only. Excel and Microsoft database, these two, Access database. You're going to access these two, you need to have it. Okay, so whatever the way it's there, whatever the data is there, it will access all the data and create the final SAS data set here. Okay, yeah, let's take one particular sample or scenario. Here what we are going to do is we are reading the data from the raw data file. So before that, let's try with the data entry part. So data entry, nothing but you are entering the data within your program. So I mentioned like whatever you are writing, it will start with the data and give the name of the data set. Suppose if you if you want anything, you can give this a name, but it should have some rules. Okay. Yeah. Before that, let's go to the data rules, and for that, then we can go further. Yeah. So when rules for the given dataset names and variable values. So you cannot give anything. Suppose like whenever you are giving the name of the file, SAS is not accepting everything. Okay, so it should have some rules to follow. That you should have some rules that need to be followed to give whenever you are giving the name. So then the rules are like the variable name or the dataset name cannot contain more than 32 characters. If you're giving the name of the variable nothing but a column name, or nothing data set name, nothing but table name in general form. This is the general terminology that we call it. It means you cannot give more than 32 characters of the particular file name or table name or variable name or column name. So if you give the more than 32 characters, so SAS will throw an error and it will says that the name of the variable is or dataset name is more than 32 characters. Okay, so a SAS variable name can be uppercase, lowercase, or mixed case. So you can give any case, like your uppercase or lowercase or mixed case. So the first character, suppose whenever you are giving the variable name of the variable or dataset name or column name or table name, the first letter must be alphabet or underscore. So alphabet nothing but A to Z and underscore. Only these 27 characters will be allowed with the first character of the data set. Other than these 27 characters, if you give any other thing, it will be thrown error. It means the first letter of the data set name or the table name or variable name or column name, it should be alphabet and or underscore. And the subsequent letters can be alphabet or numbers, but there are no special characters will be allowed. Okay, other like the first letter is mandatory alphabet or underscore, and the second letter will be alphabet or underscore or any number. Okay, so the blank cannot be appear in the SAS name. So whenever you're giving the name, it should not appear as any blanks. If you put any blank, it will be considered two separate names. Okay, so in version, because this is about the latest version, but there are some older version, like it's very old, nothing but in version 6. in version 6 1980s. At the time, so the maximum length is only 8 characters of any variable name or dataset name. That particular time, the variable length is only 8 characters. Okay, so here are some of the examples that you can identify which are the valid, which are the invalid. So there are some dataset valid SAS names are here. So which one is correct, which one is valid, which one is invalid. Just so you can think and you can correct it. So can anybody explain about what exactly which one is correct, which one is incorrect? Is it clear what I'm explaining or any questions? Yes, it's not clear. Yeah, the first one is correct. The second one is invalid. Third one invalid, and fourth one is invalid. Sixth one is valid. Fifth one is valid. So this is correct one. Second is incorrect. Third is incorrect, invalid, and fourth one is invalid. Fifth one is valid. Sixth one is valid, and this one is also invalid because it has a space. Okay. Yeah. So now we'll go to the variable type. Now we will be discussing about what is a variable name, what are the rules whenever you're giving the name of the dataset as variable names. Now let's go to the variable values. Nothing but type of the data types. Yeah, 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. Yeah. So now the next one is variable type. So what is mean by variable type? Nothing but the type of the data that you are going to read. Because data is not so whenever you're reading or whenever you're entering the looking at the data is not same. Like it's not all the numerical, it's not all the character, or it's not any special characters. There are different type of characters are there, right? So because we called as 1 to 0 to 9, we called as a numbers. But other than like A to Z and other special character, we call as a characters, right? So similarly in SAS also we have two different type of data types. One is a numerical and numeric and character. So the first one is character, because whenever you're reading the data from the file or somewhere, you have to differentiate between the character and numerical. So whenever if you read it, sometimes character data cannot be read it, but if you number it can be read it. So it means you have to differentiate between the type of the data, right? So because sometimes the amounts are always numerical amounts and numbers, but when it comes to the names, it always characters. Even though it has a number, you have to read it as a character. So like that. So we do have the type of in SAS also we have two different types. One is a character and another is numeric. So like how you can identify the character data. So how you are going to defining the character data to read it. So whenever you're reading the data, so the default length is 8 characters. Suppose if you don't specify any length, by default you take 8 characters. Okay, so character values can be stored. Values are stored with a length of those 1 to 3 to 767 bytes. It means in one particular column name, if it's a character, you can able to read the data or you can store the data, these many characters, like 32,767 characters in one particular column, you can save it. Okay, so where 1 byte equal to 1 character. Means in one particular column, if the data is a character, you can store the value up to 32,700 characters. Okay, so character values, like character variables, can contain any letters, any value. So whenever you're reading anything, whenever you're reading that, if you specify that is a character, you can be able to read everything. Whatever the characters, whatever the keyboard, whatever things that you have in the keyboard, everything can be considered as a, can able to read those characters. Whatever the character that you are typing in a file, everything can be considered and you can able to read as a character. And how you can define it means you have to use the dollar sign to read those kind of data. Suppose if the data is a character, you have to use a dollar sign and you can read those data. So I will show you that with examples in the Excel PPT. Then you can see that there you can see identify how we can do that. And the numeric. So the numerical values is stored as a floating point numbers in 8 byte of storage. Even for numerical also, it will store 8 bytes. So it would be majorly if the data is in all the numerical numbers, then only you can able to read as a numerical. If anything you're reading, any character value that you're reading as a numerical, you will see the blank. But character, not like the vice versa. But if everything can be read as a character, but you cannot read everything as a numerical. Only the numbers can be read as a numerical. Other than the numbers, if anything is there, it will be read as a blank. So for whenever you don't need to specify anything. If the data is a numerical, you don't need to specify any character. But for character, whenever you're reading that, you have to use a dollar symbol. Okay. Now similarly, okay, in the numerical, suppose even though if the maximum length is 8, minimum length or length is 8 bytes, but you can able to store the values up to 17 digits. Okay, 8 bytes on floating point storage provides 16 to 17 significant digits. Okay, you don't need to specify the length, so it will automatically store the backend those many characters. So the next important part is date values, right? Because everything we are saying as a considered as a number or character or number, but what about the dates? Right? Date consists of numbers and as well as characters. You can write in multiple formats of the dates. How the SAS system will consider those dates. Okay, so in SAS, all the date values will be considered as a number only. So how it will be considered, how it will go to the back end, how the calculation will be happen. Okay, so SAS stores the date values as the numerical values. Any numerical variable can be represented as a also date. Suppose like similarly suppose any number, you can also convert that number into the date also. Okay, so internally a SAS date value is stored as a number of days. So what will happen is whenever you're reading that particular number as a date, SAS automatically convert that number into a date. Then that number will be converted as a number of days. So between 1960 to a specific date. So what exactly will be happening is suppose you have some number. So the number is representing the number of days. How that particular number of days will be calculated means it started with the 1960 to present date. Suppose if the number is positive, okay, if the number is positive, it will be considered as after 1960 what is the date. If the number is negative, it will go to the below less than 1960 date. You can see here SAS allows dates to be read in input in various formats. So they commonly used like this. Suppose this whenever you say 0, it means it's the date of the particular 0 is 1960. 0101 1960. So this is about this particular format MMDD by 8. If you similarly the same date, so the same number 0 can be, if you apply this format, you will the date will be written in this full format 0101 1960. So suppose if we specify -1, it goes to the 1-day minus. So if you see the 365, it goes to the last day of the month, year. It means suppose any number that you're reading, so it will be considered as a number, and you can convert the number as a date. And for the date also, you can convert to the number. Whenever you're reading that, by default, the SAS will be converted the date to the number automatically in the backend. Okay, see, but if you want to define, if you want to apply any condition, if you directly apply the filter at a particular date, then you should have written like this. A date title is specified as a format date within the quotes and date. This is how you have to write it. Whenever you want to read the data into the file in the program, in the SAS program, then you have to use this format. So any questions on these two? So because we will explain more about these dates in the coming classes whenever you discuss it, but till now in these two slides and these two things, you have any questions? Because you need to understand these two things perfectly. You're using more or all these character numerical things in the coming classes, then you need to understand that these two things. Any questions here in these two topics? Okay, good. Yeah, next go to the data reading part now. Okay, let's go to this one now first. Yeah, so here there is an example here. So this is what, whenever you're asking to read the data from the file, right? So you need to have two things: location data and the structure of the data, how it's defined in the file. Nothing but, so this is about the information data for the flights from New York to Dallas and Los Angeles are stored in the raw data file. Create a SAS dataset from this raw data set. What is the raw data? This is the raw data. So this is some kind of data. How you can identify what kind of information is related to this? Means they have provided this kind of information. So here the flight number is representing the data from 1 to 3 position in this file. It means first 3 letters, first 3 digits representing the flight number. Next 4th position to 11th position, it's representing the date in the file. And the next one is the destination. So the destination means it started with the 12th position from the data to 14th position. Next, first class passengers and economy passengers, like this. So whenever anybody is asking to read this data, they must have to provide this kind of information also. Because you have the data, but if you don't know what kind of data is that one, even though they mention this is about the information about the sales information of the particular products, but you need to identify what is the product, from which position to which position is representing the position, like product ID or product name or product sales information. Those details they have to provide it if they're providing in the form of text file. Suppose if the data is an Excel file, you don't need to worry about the lengths. So directly you can take the data from there, because the data is already divided. But whenever you receive the data in the form of file like this, it means like this particular format, then you need to know these details. Without knowing these details, you cannot able to create the data. So this we call as a raw data file. This we call as a structure of the data. Nothing but metadata information. Whenever you can see, whenever anybody calls metadata, means the name of the variable and their data type and their length. Okay, now let's see how we are going to read it. To create the data set of your raw data file, you need to start with that data step. and the name of the SAS dataset being created like this. To create the raw data, to create the SAS dataset, first you need to have the data step. Once the database step is ready, then identify the location of the file where exactly there in your file by using the in-file statement. So because you're not connecting to any database, the file is located in somewhere in your PC or in your laptop or your desktop. So you have to identify the location. Means you need to have that the total file has some location. Take that file by using the in-file statement. And now describe each and every variable. Now describe how to read the data fields from the raw data files by using the input statement. Yeah. So this is how you can. This is the data. I think here it's not there. Something is not missing. I will discuss it this. So this is the data, and here we have to use it, and we have to write this data set, create the data in this format. So this file will be converted into this particular format, in a structured format, in a proper format. Okay, let's see how it will do that. So to create the data set, we have to use the data, the general syntax, like what is a general syntax, general definition of how we can define the data set. So general syntax of the data set is data is a keyword. You cannot change it. So data in the library reference dot SAS dataset name. So what is the library reference? What is done here? So the library reference, lib right here called as the library reference is nothing but a name of the library that you are going to store the data, where you are going to saving this particular data that you are reading into the location. Means when yesterday we discussed about the libraries, nothing but where the this is the location of the SAS files that are stored, right? So where exactly that you are storing, saving these data in a particular here. So if you don't specify it by default, SAS system will use a temporary location. But if you specify if you want to specify, you can specify the library name. But before that, you have to create that particular library. So once you create the library, you can also use that library and save this data in a particular file, the location. But suppose if you don't define any library, if you don't want anything, I just want to see the data, and once the process is completed, I want to close it. Then we can use, or because you don't need to specify anything. By default, SAS system will take it to a particular location that we call as a work location, that we call as a temporary library. Suppose if you specify any library, that particular library we call as a permanent library. Okay, so this dataset creates a temporary SAS dataset name called this dataset. Here the data work dot this one. So this data statement creates a permanent SAS dataset name called this. That is libname IA in this one. So IA is the library reference here. We'll discuss this one. So here, go to the libraries. So now you want to create your own library, nothing but you want to save the data in a particular location. To save the data in a particular location, you have to reference that particular location with some name. So that particular name we call as a library name, library reference name. So how you are going to create the libraries? We have different methods. Suppose since we are using the Windows SAS, so we have multiple ways that you can create it. But if you are going to use a Unix machine, you have to write the code and you can do that. First, how you can do that means to, the syntax for creating the library. So that we call libname. So libname means library name that you are giving. And you can give the name of the library, nothing but library reference. Just now we saw that IA, right? That IA, you can give your own name. Okay, and that name should not exceed more than 8 characters and follows the SAS variable name convention. Nothing but it should not start with a number. So I'm giving some called as temp. So it's less than 8 characters and it's not started with any number, and it doesn't have any spaces. So then then where exactly you want to save the data? You need to, because you are creating the library. Whenever you are creating the library means you are giving some name to a particular folder. I think a simple example is in which folder you want to save the data. Normally in a laptop we can create some different folders for the different purposes, like movies, pictures, videos, like that, right? Similarly, SAS also, you can also create your own folder and save the data here. To save the data to the particular that location, you have to reference by using the lib name. So where exactly you want to save it? So I'm saving the files in this location. Take this path, put it here. Take the complete path and put it here. So in this way, what happened? You are creating the library called temp, and whatever you are saving the files under the temp location, that files will be located in this folder. It will go redirected to that one. So now you can run it. So you can run this particular line. Select it. You click on run. You can see the library reference temp was successfully assigned as follows. And you can see the name here. So once you run, if you see this kind of message, it's nothing but it will be created separate folder here, the name. So this is a general method that we use in a real time. So where exactly you want to save the location, that location you have to specify in the files here. Okay, so this is a one method that you can create the libraries. The other method is, if you are using the Windows, go to the libraries and right click it and create a new. Similarly, you can give the name, and this is the default one. So engine means, and suppose these libraries can also be created in the database level also. Nothing but suppose if you are using the Oracle database, you can also create a library to the particular database. You can access from there, you can store to there. So by default means it's a SAS engine. You can see all the different databases that we have, it supports. In which database, which engine that you want to save that, you can save. So suppose let's take Oracle. Whenever you say Oracle means you need a username, password, path, and options. So but here we are using the default one. So default means SAS. It's your local machine. So this particular option, enable at startup, it means when you click this icon, every time when you open the SAS, this particular library will be created automatically. It will be shown in the libraries. And you can see browse means where exactly you want to where exactly you have to navigate to your folder. Let's take this. You click it here, it's access your libraries. So when you click it, you see, okay, the same path will be redirected to say keep here. Then just click OK. And what you have to give the name. When you click the name, it will be created a new library here. Just take it some name. Okay. See the new name here. New library is created. So the same path can be referenced in multiple libraries. It's not mandatory to use one path, only one particular library. The libraries can be given a number of libraries you can create it, but you can reference to the same path for all the libraries also. Because what will happen is, suppose you created your own library, because that space is used for everybody in project level. So somebody can also be used their own libraries and they can create it and they save the files there. Okay, so this is about the libraries. And other method is there is a icon here. If you click that one, again same windows will be open. So this is other way you can create it. But generally we use this program techniques because real time you have to define the libraries through programming only. You cannot do it right click and do that, because whenever you create through right click and create the libraries, it will be accessible for you whenever you open it. But at the project level means everybody need to have access. Okay, so this is how you can create the libraries. So this, whenever you create a library like this library we called as a permanent library. It means the data is stored permanently. Even though if you close the SAS session, the files will be there located here, wherever you defined it. Okay. And similarly, there is other library called as temporary library. So nothing but temporary means until your SAS session is active, the files will be there. Once you close the SAS session, all the files will be deleted automatically. That library we used as a work library. So this particular work library every day will be created. Whenever you open the SAS, the new library will be created. And if you don't specify anything, that data will be stored by default in this particular library. Okay, let's see that one here. So if you, by default, it will goes to the work. But if you don't specify work also, it will goes there. But if you specify any library, you need to define it and you can use it like this. This we call as a permanent library. This we call as a temporary library. Is it clear? Any questions? Okay. Yeah. The next one is in file statement. So what is the in file? Nothing but defining your raw data. So where exactly your raw data file is there. You are referencing that particular file. You're going to read that particular file. Then we use the in file statement. In file means the file is coming into the SAS. Okay, so here you have to use in file the file name. The file name nothing but you have to give the along with the path where exactly located, and also you can give the file name of the file. Okay, I'll show you that like how you can do that. So this is my file. Okay, in this file we have some data. Okay, this is my data. Now I want to read this data and create the data set. This is a file that you're suppose this kind of file you received from your client or project related data, that you want to read the data and create the SAS data set. So how you can define here means, so now you're giving data flies. Okay, now as mentioned here, we have to use the in file statement. In file, and you have to give the path along with that file name. How you have to give that? Take this path, take the path, and also you have to take the name of the file, and also take the extension of the file. So this is how you have to use it, and you have to use a semicolon. So first I mentioned it, for every statement need to be ended with a semicolon. This is a libname statement, this is a data statement, this is an in file statement. Means every statement need to be ended with a semicolon. Now we use the in-file statement and read and define the path. So this is how we can define. Next one is, okay, so this particular path is different depending upon your operating system, which operating environment that you are using. That are based on the operating environment, this locate the file is different, the path and everything will be different. So here you can see, so this is about the Windows, and this is about the Unix environment, because in Unix environment the files are not in a drive like C drive or G drive like that. It's not like that. It's a file system format, Unix. But when it comes to the window like mainframe, OS 360, that's we call as this particular thing like that, you have to use it. So based on the operating environment, the location of the files automatically will be different. You can get to know, because if you use the pwd command in a Unix environment, you will give the present working directory, pwd, where exactly you are located, the file is located, you will get the path details if you type the command. But in Index, you can copy paste it. Similarly, in mainframes also you can take the path. Okay. And the next one is input statement. Now we discuss about the data statement, and next one is a in file statement, and next one is a input statement. So this is a very, very important when reading the data, because here you are going to define each and every field from the file that you are reading. If you do mistakes, the file also will create wrongly. Like if you specify wrong length, wrong thing, the complete data will be in a different format, different data will be created, data sets. So it means whatever the things that you have got it from your client, you have to follow the strictly that particular rule. So now here you have to specify input specification. What exactly the input specification means? Name of the SAS variable. Whenever you say name of the SAS variable means you have to recollect the rule. You cannot give your own name. So sometime what happened, the client will provide the variable names. Sometimes you may need to choose your own based on the description that they provided. And identify the variable as a character or numerical. Once you define the variable, once you name the variable, and you need to identify that particular variable is a character variable or a numerical variable. How you will identify it means based on the data. So normally you will get these details like for name of the variable and the type of the data and the length. These three things definitely you will get to know that before reading the data. Suppose if they don't provide the type of the data as a character numerical, then everything you have to consider as a character and read it. So just understand what I'm saying, okay? You have to remember these points. So it means whenever you're creating the data set, first you need to know the data. First you need to write the data step. Then you need to use the in-file statement. The in-file statement will tell you that where exactly the file is located. It means the referencing of the particular file. So once you use the in-file statement, then you have to use the input statement. In the input statement, each and every field that you're going to using, it will be defined there. So in the input statement, first you write the input keyword, after the variable name and the type of the data. And next one is location of the raw data. So from which position to which position you have the data that you got the details, and can be specified this thing, that is okay. Now the next one is input statement. Next, give the name of the variable. So here, so they have provided the flight number. So you have to use a flight number. So they are not provided, it's a character numerical. So you have to read as a character. To read the data as a character variable, you have to use a $sign. And they also provided the column. It means they provided a column length 1, 2, 3. It means you are reading the data from this file, the flight number from 1 to 3, and that information you're saving into the flight details. No, so that's what we discussed, right? So what is a valid SAS dataset names and variable names? So you cannot use the space. If you use the space, it will be considered as a two different name variables. So always only use once and without space. The next one is a date. So date also I'm giving a character. And the next one is 4 to 11. The next one is destination. So destination, I'm also using character. 12 to 14. First class passengers is also dollar. What is here? Into 17. 8 into 20. Now you defined it and completed all the infiles input statement, right? So any questions here? Is it clear? Because you need to understand how I am writing. See, because you know that it's a number, right? But they're not provided as a number. See, it has a character. Slash is a character. So in coming classes, we will discuss more on that particular things. Okay, but now everything I'm considered as a character and reading that, because this whatever you're asking question is advanced one. So there is a MMDD by format, like input and input. Those things you need to understand. So I will explain those things in coming classes. Okay, but now everything we need to consider as a character and run it. Now the last one you have to specify as a run. So whenever you specify the run, it means this particular data step is completed. So if you don't specify the run, you can specify next sequence statements. You can, if you don't specify, then it will keep on running only, but it won't give the output. And like one more thing. So this order must be followed. So you cannot write input first, then infile second. So the order must means, because first you have to define the location file, then you can read the data. But if you don't specify the location, if you don't read the infile and write it, do not do that. Now let's run this one. Yeah, now go to the work. See, here we have not specified anything. It means directly it goes to the work location. The information also see in the log file. The data set work dot flight. Whenever you say work means the library. This is our library. Go to the library, there you can see the flight has 10 observations and 5 variables. So whenever you say observations, nothing but number of records, number of rows. In SAS, we called as observations. You can call as a rows, or you can call as a column records. But generally the terminology we use observations in SAS. But variables nothing but columns. Okay, now let's see how the data is created from what. Now let's go to the file. So this is our file. Okay, this file we have converted into this particular format. It means we are divided in the proper manner. See, flight number, date, destination, first class passengers, economy class passengers. It means we are created in a proper format. Because now, because if you have the data like this, nobody able to understand. You can't do anything. Now by using this, you can do what kind of analysis you want it. Like what is the total number of economy passengers in this particular destination? LAX total how many number of passengers traveled on this date? Or date wise number of passengers, how many passengers that they travel in like this. We can calculate all the details. Do the analysis. That is called as analysis. Means by using that particular file, you can't. It's calculating is different way. But it's very risky. But if you after converting and reading into the SAS dataset, you can write your own queries and do analysis easily. So this is how you are going to create the dataset by using the in file statement input statement. This method we call as a column input. Why it's mentioned column input means each and every variable is defined by their position, by their column position in the data, in the file. So this is a first line, fourth column, you can see. So that's why, because it's in mentioned position, right? So that's we call as a column input. This particular input file, okay, name is called as a column input. That we use is called as a column input method. So in the column input method, the variables will be defined their position, starting and ending positions both. So there are other different methods are there, like list input, format input are there. In the list input, you are not going to specify the length that we'll discuss in coming classes. But in the column input, each and every variable will be defined with their starting position to ending position. In between it, you have to use a hyphen. This method we call as a column input. So this is how you are going to read the data, read the file from your laptop or your PC and create the data set. So like this, SAS is supporting, suppose through data step, you can read CSV file, .txt file, .dat files. So with the data step, you cannot read the Excel file. You cannot read the access files. So we do have different methods, different techniques are there. You can also, by using those programming techniques, you can read those type of data as well. But in the data step, it will support only these type of files, like .txt. The .txt means what kind of different, in the .txt also we have multiple formats like fixed width file, column width file, tab delimiter, comma delimiter, space delimiter. Different type of files are there in .txt text files, right? In CSV also .csv different extension and .dat data files. So Linux it supported all these three files. When for these three type of files, you don't need to any additional softwares. Nothing, but you don't need to have access. You don't need to have connect. It will, but because it's a SAN data step, it all the files are located within your environment, within your laptop or PC. So that's the reason you don't need to any additional software. It supports on because the data step. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Any questions? Okay. Yeah. So this is one of the method that we are going to read the SAS files. Yeah, so I'll stop here. We'll continue to the other different methods. And before that, we are going to discussing about how exactly it's happening in the back end. So because when you write in the program, when you write the program here, you have written the program and executed it. But what exactly it's happening in the back end? How SAS is considering and reading those data and converting from text to in separate formats in the data. Okay, yeah, we'll discuss this tomorrow and we'll see that background process of them. There is some different keywords are there that you need to understand. Yeah. I will talk tomorrow. So, and if you have any questions, just let me know. I will explain it to you. Okay. Yeah. So we'll meet tomorrow at the same time and can see the more topics. Okay. Thank you. And I'll send I'll ask them to send the yesterday's and today's recordings to. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye. Yes, I'll also send all the materials, whatever the things I'm sharing here. You'll get all these materials along with the recordings. Yeah. Thank you.